The good news is I'm not going to give you like real dry, tactical, like what's going on in the economy and putting money in the stock market. Instead, I'm going to be focused on where can you recover cash. I'm going to give you really practical ways that you can improve the bottom line without having to work harder or expand your space or do all the kind of stuff that you learn in here with Bedros and everything. I'm going to teach you like for every dollar you make, you're probably losing 10% or more to what I call the ignorance tax. You know, like just not knowing any better. And the problem is in the world of finance, there's no one really paid to teach most of this stuff because the things that you learn in personal finance is usually geared towards things that earn a commission. So if you look at it, it's like there's a lot of education on insurance because there's a lot of commissions paid on insurance. But there's not as much about what to do about your credit or how that impacts your cash flow and how you can improve cash flow without having to just save and sacrifice and delay and defer. That's what a lot of advice is just cut and reduce. But we're not going to talk about reduction. We're not going to talk about lowering lifestyle. We're going to talk about how do you maintain or even improve your current lifestyle and still have more money. Make sense? Yes. All right, so we're all in the right place. We're doing all right with that. I'm going to keep you guys awake in that whole thing. So I'm going to focus on three main areas, and if we have more time, I might even hit a fourth. The first one is going to be cash flow. The second one, I know you heard from an accountant, and we talked a little bit about tax. I'm going to give you a couple more insights there. And then the third piece, and I know that it might sound a little dreadful when I say the third piece, but we are going to talk a little bit about insurance, but it's just where do you have duplicate coverages, where do you have duplicate costs, where you can improve what you're paying there so you either have better coverage or more money, okay? So those are going to be the three main areas of focus. And so here's one of the issues that we have to really deal with. There's an economic theory called Parkinson's Law. So Parkinson's Law says if you increase your income, your expenses will rise to meet or exceed that income between 3 and 6 months if you don't have a plan. It's almost like gravity, right? So what will happen is you make more money but not necessarily feel like you're getting ahead. And for some people, they get further behind because they now have more, oh, I need to buy this or I need that kind of thing. And all of a sudden they're going, why am I finding myself further in debt? What happened to that money that I earned? So before anything, what I want you to do is when you go back, or maybe even tonight you make a phone call, you call your existing bank, and I want you to set up a separate account versus your ordinary business account or your personal checking. And I want you to name this your wealth account, okay? Think of it this way. If someone took some milk and they add some chocolate to it, they mix it up, it's commingled. You're not going to be able to extract the chocolate back out. The same thing happens with your finances. If it just goes into a regular account, you'll find a reason or a way to spend that money. But if you instead have this wealth account and we start to recover cash, you can then capture it in that wealth account and then deliberately decide what to do with that money. Now, some people want to hurry and invest that money. I don't think you need to hurry and invest that money. Just build up some savings and build up some liquidity because for far too many business owners, they're doing what I call as redlining. Redlining is where you earn more money and you aggressively pursue everything as soon as that money comes in. I'm going to do this, I'm going to expand there. And then what happens is if there's any hiccup or there's any issue, all of a sudden you find yourself in a scarcity mindset because you're worried, concerned, and fearful of money. So one of the best returns you're going to have is to build some liquidity. When you guys asked, was it John? Was he the guy up here speaking? When you asked him, he said have at least a couple months operating expense. I would be real specific and say have 6 months expenses in liquidity. Before you invest into a retirement account, before you too aggressively start paying off debt, I want you to build a fund that if anything happens, you know you're okay. And what this allows you to do is you don't have to chase bad profits. Meaning you have some a-hole in your program, you can kick them out, doesn't matter. Because you've got enough money, you don't need that check that they're going to write you so that you can reserve it for only the people that really want to be healthy and want to appreciate what you have to offer for them. And by the way, that's a pretty powerful statement to everybody else that's in your program, and it's a very powerful position for you to come from. You know, you can always send them to someone that is in a fit body boot camp. Just say, oh yeah, go down the street, there's a CrossFit down there you should check out. You know, whatever it is. So have that liquidity. Because in the world of finance, there's rate of return and there's cost that most people take into consideration. I call that internal. So if I put money in a money market, it earns me 1%, that's my rate of return. If I put it in a CD and it earns me 2%, that's my rate of return. If I'm paying 7% on an interest rate, that's my cost. That's all internal. But what I want you to consider is there's a lot more going on than just that. There's the external factor. So here's an external factor. If I have that money that's only earning 1%, But then I can go to my car insurance, I can go to my homeowner's insurance, and I can increase the deductibles. Because deductibles are when you're actually covered, and there's a lot of people that have really low deductibles because they don't have liquidity. They don't have money to handle it. So they're paying a higher premium than they have to. So now if I have that money in cash, I increase those deductibles, I start saving money on my insurance. It means the external return on that savings account is much greater than 1% because it's all the savings that comes along with it. Does that make sense? The other thing is when you have some liquidity, when you have some savings, you'll get better interest rates on your loans because to get a good interest rate, there's 3 C's. 1 is credit, 2 is cash flow, and 3rd is collateral. So if you have what they call seasoned money, when you've got savings, they're going to look at you as a more favorable borrower, okay? So you want to make sure to build this wealth account. Now let's talk about how do you start recovering that cash. We're going to go to cash flow first. And what relates to cash flow is credit. So everyone here can go get a free credit report. You can go Google free credit report. You can go to annualcreditreport.com. I found myfico.com is probably the most accurate. And you want to look at all 3 bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. 83% of people have an error on their credit report. This is how important that is. When you have an error on your credit report, it's going to lower your credit score. If you went and bought let's just say you got a really small FHA loan, you're going to buy a house or something, $200,000. If you have a 719 credit score instead of a 720, it would cost you $6,000 in closing costs to buy the exact same interest rate as the person that has a 720. Yet 83% of people have an error on their credit report. Well, 1/4 of the people that have that error can't get a loan that they would have otherwise had. So what I want you to do is look and see, are there errors on your credit report? Misspellings on your name, wrong addresses, simple stuff, but the most important thing to look at is what's called your loan-to-value assessment. So if you just go and if you have a credit card or if you have a home equity line of credit, anything that's known as revolving debt where you can charge it up and pay it down and charge it back up, that's going to have a loan-to-value. So if I had a credit card of $10,000 and I go charge $2,000, that's 20% loan-to-value. If I charge $5,000, that's 50% loan-to-value. It's just how much have I used up versus what's available. One of the things a lot of credit card companies do is they don't report the amount that's available to you. So if you really have a $10,000 limit, but they don't report that and you go charge $2,000, it looks like you're maxed out. Looks like you've used up all of your credit, and 1/3 of your credit score is made up of your loan-to-value. So if you can keep your loan-to-values at 20 or 30%, you're going to get the best credit score. And part of the way that you might do that is, I heard earlier, if you have a business line of credit or business credit card, that isn't going to show up on your personal credit report. So your loan-to-values don't matter. But if it's a personal credit card, it is going to show up. So it's important to have maybe 2, or what's optimal is 3 personal credit cards. And if you can get as much available limit as possible, that's going to look good from a credit standpoint. Okay? Any questions on loan-to-value? Make sure it's reported. They'll give you phone numbers, they'll give you addresses, you just have to send certified mail, you have to make a phone call, and then you just want to check back up. You can check your score as often as you want, and it won't impact your score. Some of you may be familiar with inquiries. There's hard inquiries and soft inquiries. If you went in to get a loan, and you let multiple banks look at it, or you went to multiple places, they might inquire multiple times, and it would lower your score. But when you look, it's a soft inquiry, so it doesn't count against you. You can look at it, you could be OCD and look at it every day, you know? And it's totally cool, yeah. How long does it take for an error to be fixed? It depends on the severity of the error and who you're dealing with. I've seen them corrected within days, and I've seen it where you have to get an attorney involved. So here's a big error that happens for some people. If you go look at your credit score and like, you find that there's some late payment or some late bill that you didn't even recognize was late. Like one time my wife paid a card off, but she used the mail instead of direct payment, and it accrued 32 cents, and so they marked us as late. It took me like a day to get that resolved. But I know other people that someone else has the same name as them, and all of a sudden they get some credit for what, and that can become a little bit more problematic. So it just depends. But if you have something that was late, don't just go pay that off if it shows as marked as late on your credit. You have to get a letter of deletion. Google letter of deletion. You have to get the institution to agree that they will delete it when you pay it off instead of bring it current. Because if you pay it without that, it makes it like a problem all over again, even though you resolved it. I know it makes no sense. It's just how credit works. So that's just if you find that there's an issue where there's some past payment and you have to actually pay it. Now, let's get into the bigger stuff here that's really going to free up the cash and put some money in your pocket, which relates to credit and cash flow at the same time. The most misunderstood, yet super impactful thing is called debt to income. For every dollar you earn, there's a percentage of that that goes to pay towards debt if you have any loan. Doesn't matter whether that's a home loan, a car loan, a credit card, a student loan, it's just for every dollar you earn, what percentage of that has to go towards that loan? And it's not just the interest, it's whatever the minimum payment is, okay? The higher the debt to income, the higher the percentage you have to pay towards loans, the lower your credit score is going to be. So here's how you address it. Don't take a shotgun approach to debt. Don't just pay extra to anything anytime you have extra. I want you to get totally precise and deliberate about this, Take every loan you have and list the balance. And then divide the balance by its own monthly payment, minimum monthly payment. And that's going to spit out a number. We call this your cash flow index. You want to look and see which has the lowest cash flow index on every loan that you have. Whichever one has the lowest is going to be the only loan that you pay extra to if you want to pay debt off. You're going to pay the minimum to every other loan but the one with the lowest cash flow index. Take the balance, divide it by the payment, and here's why. Something with the low cash flow index means it's requiring a pretty high payment from you in relationship to a pretty low balance. And so if I have a $100,000 second mortgage or a $10,000 credit card, that both have the exact same payment requirement, which is highly likely. See, I could get that credit card paid off a lot faster, but they both have the exact negative impact on my debt to income. So rather than trying to say, I just need to get my mortgage paid off and starting to pay extra towards that, I'm just going to pay extra towards a credit card. Now, a lot of financial people say, you only pay off whatever is the highest interest rate. But remember, we talked about internal cost versus external cost. Yes, maybe your highest internal cost is the highest interest rate, but we have to consider what happens if we improve your credit score. What if by paying off one of these loans, it improves that credit score, you can go and renegotiate your debt because interest rates are ridiculously low, but 80% of business owners can't take advantage of it because as a business owner, you are judged more critically and heavily on your credit than someone at a W-2 job. Have you found that, like trying to go get a loan, they're like, well, we need this history and we need this, that, and the other, and if you're taking dividends out of an S-Corp, they start discounting those kind of things. So you want to pay off only the thing with the lowest cash flow index first. It's going to free up cash flow faster, and it's going to protect you. But even before that, make sure you're building your savings, that wealth account that we're talking about setting up. Build that first, pay something down second. Now, I'll give you, here's another strategy for the right person. Rather than just paying towards that, do what's called the 90-day debt delay. 90-day debt delay would be pay the minimum to every loan, but for 90 days, take the money that you would normally be paying towards debt and invest it in your business. So the problem with only focusing on paying off debt is people get into a scarcity mindset. Everything's about cutting and reducing, and it can actually shrink their business and their mindset because there's no huge level of enjoyment through that, and there's no personal gratification and reward other than paying the things off. And so a lot of times people spring right back into debt because they deprive themselves. Just like people that they just restrict calories. They eventually gain the weight back because they gorge themselves eventually, or they starve themselves, or their metabolism starts to shut down because of that kind of stuff. Same thing happens to your mindset if you're only focused on what you need to get rid of versus what you need to go for. Okay? So if you just wait 90 days and you say, if there's one area of your business that if you've invested more money, that if you put that money into to increase cash flow first, to produce, then start taking the increased production, and you'll actually pay off debt faster. Once I was in New Jersey on an airplane, and they said we were number 22 in line for takeoff. I was like, we're going to be here forever. And New York, New Jersey is not a place to spend any time, unless you like the smell of urine. And, because if anyone lives there, I'm sorry for offending you. It's just the truth. But what they did was they actually opened up another runway, and we just ended up going east first over the ocean and then came back west. That's like a debt delay. Maybe you feel like, oh, well, I'm not paying off my debt faster because you're waiting 90 days, but it's just getting you a better track to run on so that you could then accelerate it. Now, once you improve the debt to income by paying off the one with the lowest cash flow index, now it's time to go renegotiate interest rates. Now it's time to look at maybe consolidating some of the loans and restructuring them. Maybe you have something that's non-tax deductible on interest that you could then roll into a tax deductible situation. And so here's the other consideration. Most people that want to pay off debt force themselves into really tough spots. Like, have you ever thought, well, I'll just shorten my mortgage, or I'll shorten my loans, and that'll force me into higher payment. But everybody's a business owner in here, right? Well, when you're a business owner, it's not like clockwork that every payment comes in exactly when it's supposed to and that people always pay on time, that everything goes perfectly exactly how you envisioned it. So if you actually shorten those mortgages, you put yourself at more risk. Because there's nothing to say, if I have a 30-year mortgage, it needs to take me 30 years to pay that off. But most people think, I'm going to go to a 10-year mortgage, and then that's going to force me to pay it off sooner. But what happens is it forces more people into foreclosure a lot of times, because now all your money's tied up in dead equity. It's tied up inside of something rather than in that wealth account, rather than in your control. And there's no magic. So, like, when I was in high school, I took a math class, and they said, hey, look, if you have a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage, look at all the interest you save on a 15-year mortgage. But what they didn't tell me was that if I just took the 30-year mortgage and made the exact same payment as what the 15-year required, it would pay off in 15 years. Well, I kind of like to keep control of my money because banks love to lend money to people who don't need it. If you need it, they don't want to give it to you. And here's what's crazy. If you have a whole bunch of equity, let's say that, you and I are neighbors, and you just decide, screw the bank, so you're never paying, you're mad at them, and I'm like, 15-year, I'm paying extra on it every month, and then all of a sudden, we both stop paying. Guess who gets foreclosed on first? Oh, you think I would, but it's, oh, you're right. I'm the good guy in this. I made you the bad guy. I'm sorry. I made you the irresponsible, But yeah, they're going to look at me because I have equity. I'm just a number that they can make something on selling that. If he's not making payments, he's upside down, they might let him live there for 27 months, which we've seen, right? But if I all of a sudden have 50% equity, they're like, great, we'll take that home, even though I was paying extra. Now, on the other hand, what if I had that money in a wealth account and I do hit a situation, I can make a smaller payment and I have side account of money to make the payment, so I have less risk. So it's not just about how you can save the most money. It's about how you can protect yourself. There has to be both considerations. And you have to think about their agenda. Did you know a bank can sell a 15-year mortgage for about twice the profit as a 30-year mortgage? Because they're selling the cash flow. And how many, I know they promised not to, like I just financed a house last year. We bought a new house. And they said, yeah, we don't sell our loans. It only took 35 days before they sold the loan. They sell their loans. That's what happens. Anyone ever had one time it's this bank, then the next time it's another bank? They sell loans. The shorter the mortgage, the more they can sell it for because they're selling that cash flow, where less than 5% of people ever pay that mortgage off. So if you want to pay off your mortgage, do it in a safe manner. Maximize your tax deductions, keep the money on the side, and then pay it off in one fell swoop when you write the check versus forcing yourself into a worse debt to income, harming your credit score, which might mean every credit card you have is now a higher interest rate, or that business loan you wanted gets denied because you have bad debt to income. See how the whole picture starts coming together in this? So it's not just about paying on time with credit. It's about loan to value. It's about debt to income. It's about checking errors. And it's about limiting inquiries by other institutions. If you go buy a car, don't let everybody check your credit. Just let the place that you're buying the car from check your credit. And if you look like a hooligan like Bedros and I, then maybe you have to show them a credit report or like a bank account so they go, oh, okay, I got it. You guys can pay cash, right? So cash flow. Any questions on cash flow index, and credit? Yeah.
You mentioned that there's a lot of errors on. Where are we at? Okay. Anyway, you mentioned that there's a lot of errors on different credit reports. Now, do you know of any company or where to go ahead and take care of those errors, or am I supposed to know how to fix all of them myself?
So people that hire us, we help them with that. There's a program out there called 7 Steps to 720 if you just want to do it on your own. And if you've got major issues, Robert's Credit Group out of Texas is really good with major issues.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool. Robert's Credit Group out of Texas. There was another question back here.
That wealth account, is that in a business name or personal?
So I'll give you a bonus. I do one in both. I do a wealth account personally, so that when I free up money personally, I put it there. But then I do something in my business where, you know, as I'm building more and more of a business, and I'm hiring more and more people, I started making it that if I did anything for the business, I charged at least what anyone else in the business would get paid, and I put it in that wealth account. So that people stopped coming to me with the problems because I was cheap. I made myself really expensive in my business. So if you have employees and you have an organization, you can start to capture wealth in that business. You know, because here's the problem. If you're a small business, a lot of times as the business owner, you're the problem solver. You make sure it happens because you take real pride in the business. But at the same time, you create really bad habits for anyone that works for you that you always take care of something. So I would set up a separate account in the business to start capturing wealth. I call that the opportunity fund or the war chest.
On the credit report, you said if it's a $10,000 limit, but we only use $2,000, how are we going to see they're not reporting the right loan to value?
It'll say, if you have a $2,000 charge, it'll say available limit, zero.
Okay.
If it's reporting, it'll say available limit, 8,000. So you'll see it shows available limit kind of on the right side, and it shows the balance right below.
What if you pay off your bill every month? Let's say you charge $2,000 or you accumulated, and you pay it off every month. How does that show? Let's say I haven't paid my bill yet because it hasn't come yet, and I go to apply for something.
Great question. Here's what's important. Even if you pay your bill off every single month, they don't look exactly when you pay it off. They look when they look. And if you've charged over a certain loan to value, it will ding your credit score.
So be very strategic.
So let's say I only have one credit card that I use that, and I charge everything on that, and it's got $10,000 limit, and I go up to $8,000, but I pay it off every month. They might look in there when it's got $8,000 of charges and go, credit risk, we're gonna drop it. That's why having 3 cards, alternating use, limiting how much you go on the loan to value will maximize the score, even if you pay it off in full. And it's great that you pay it off in full.
I do have a personal, I have the FitBody card, and I keep them separate.
Great. And then look, when you pull your credit score, look and see if they treat your business card as a business card or a personal card.
Okay.
If it's a business card, it will not show up on your credit report.
That's good.
The only way a business card shows up on your credit report is after default, which usually takes 6 months. Which means if you ever were in a really tough situation, you would make sure to pay your personal card and maybe go 30 days late on the business because it doesn't show up as a 30-day late.
Okay.
It only shows up when you default.
Thank you.
So that all protects your interest rate. Yep. Any other questions on this? Yep.
Now, how does Amex show up? Because Amex is unlimited.
Oh, a charge card? A charge card shows up different if it's a charge card.
So that your Amex balance has no effect then?
Yeah, it's not going to have
Since it's
any.
unlimited,
Charge
it
card's
doesn't
not
have
gonna
any
be a
debt to
problem.
ratio. Okay.
Yep. As long as you pay it off. So just consider, if you have high interest rate loans, you're not just going to pay off the one with the highest interest rate. You want to look and say, hey, maybe I can refinance and I can bring that higher interest rate into this other loan. If I can extend my loans, now I can be more deliberate, especially if I'm putting money in the wealth account or only paying towards the lowest cash flow index. And then if there's any non-deductible interest, maybe you can make it deductible interest. That's why it's important to keep business expenses on business cards, so you're deducting any of the interest where you're not deducting that on the personal side. And there are other considerations with that, yeah.
If you have multiple credit cards and you're trying to improve your credit score, is it wise to, say, pay off a couple of them and then close the account, or do you pay it off and leave it open?
Do not close your accounts. When you close your accounts, you kill your credit history. Even if you're never going to use the card again, you cut it up and you leave the line open. Here's the worst credit cards. My wife, once I made the mistake, thinking it would be to be a good husband, to go to Black Friday, right? So I go, it's like 3 in the morning. I don't understand why people are doing this, to buy a CD or some MP3 player that's going to break tomorrow. But I'm sitting there, and they said, hey, this line is open if you want to apply for a credit card, and we're going to give you 30% off. Well, a lot of people take them up on that offer because they don't want to wait in the line, clear around the store, and they think, oh, 30% off. But the problem is they're only giving you a $500 credit line and an inquiry. You want high lines of credit when you have credit cards. You want as much available to you if you're not a reckless spender. If you're a reckless spender, just don't have a credit card, right? But if you're going to have them, the more the balance. But don't eliminate them. It's going to hurt your credit history. Just stop using them. Now, if you have 3 personal lines like I talked about, alternate the use and even use all 3 of them if it keeps you under your certain loan to value. Right here. Right back here.
The newlywed.
What are your thoughts on rolling over your credit cards into xero for the year? Like Chase sends you get a year's xero and you roll over 14 grand over in there.
I know people that make this is their huge thing that they like doing this all the time. Doing it once is okay, but here's the problem. What they're starting to do is require higher minimum payments on 0% balances. All they're looking for is, can you make a mistake and pay 1 minute late so that they can start charging the interest? Or you have to also read the fine print because they could be charging you a transfer fee to go to the 0% interest. So let me give you a lesson. If you ever go buy a vehicle and they say, hey, it's $5,000 cash back or 0% interest, well, guess what? If you get 0% interest, you actually paid your finance charge of $5,000 up front. That's a really high interest rate. It wasn't a 0% interest rate. It was a prepaid $5,000 interest cost. When we run that, it might actually be like a 10% interest rate where they're selling 2.9% loans right now, right? So you have to be real careful about those kind of things. And if you're doing that regularly, what's going to happen is you're going to have a bunch of credit lines that start opening. It's going to start diminishing your score, and you're going to eventually stop getting offered that deal. And so to do it once is okay. To make it habitual becomes a problem. Make sense? All right, so let's transition. That was a little bit with credit and cash flow. We can go through like 40 other strategies, but I wanted to give you some basics. Set up the wealth account. Only pay the thing with the lowest cash flow index. Consider the 90-day debt delay where you stop paying anything more than the minimum. Invest it in the business. Increase your production. And then attack one loan at a time. When the credit improves, go renegotiate your interest rates. The easiest interest rates to renegotiate are credit cards typically. The second easiest is actually a mortgage. And with mortgages, if you're not upside down with your equity, if you have any equity in a home, you can do what's called a streamline refinance with most companies, where if you can just get to the refinance department and say, I'd like to keep my loan with you, if you've improved your credit score and you've had a good payment history, a lot of times they'll reduce your interest rate without a full appraisal and without full closing costs. So maybe a drive-by appraisal and a $200 doc fee instead of a full refinance. We've had a lot of that happening in the last few years, so that would be a consideration. We've had people save hundreds and sometimes in extreme cases thousands of dollars per month keeping the same lender, okay? Now, when you call to change to get a better interest rate on your credit card, you have to say, hey, I want to talk to your department that issues cards, or I need to talk to the department that has that's dealing with the specials. The first person you call has no authority to change your interest rate. You have to go to the right department, then they'll work with you. Make sense? So that'll shave off anywhere from a third of the time to a half of the time it takes to pay off debt if you just do some of those types of things. It makes a huge difference, and it doesn't infringe upon your life because it's money that you're already spending. It's just getting deliberate about how you do it. All right, let's talk about taxes for a minute. I know you went through some of this before. I'm in full agreement. Most people in your situation, an S corporation is going to be one of the better corporate types. If you're not incorporated, it's time to get incorporated. When you're not incorporated, you take on full liability, and when you're incorporated, you can actually go amend 3 previous years' taxes if you missed any deductions. So we've had extreme case, $457,000 in missed deductions we found for someone that was incorporated. On the slightest case, we found $951. So, I mean, it's like a lot of people, if you're not communicating with your accountant throughout the year, and especially during a time that's not January, February, March, or April, you're probably overpaying on taxes. So you want to make sure that you're incorporated. The next thing is, he mentioned it, you need to differentiate your income. If you're taking all salary, you're paying 15.3% on every dollar. If you start taking dividends, you're going to avoid that 15.3%. So start taking dividends. You could be taking the exact amount of income. You just differentiate what you take, and you'll be paying less in tax. So that's one thing that you really want to start doing. And anyone in here own their building that they're in? Show of hands. Anyone own the building? Okay, you need to learn about cost segregation. Cost segregation is nice. Congratulations. And you're in the room still. Good job. So if you want to double or triple the amount of tax deductions you're getting, learn about cost segregation. It'll be a game changer for a new building. So On the tax side, one thing I would really warn you about is just putting money into a retirement plan, because let's just think through this. Anyone in this room plan on being less successful in the future than they are today? I mean, why would you show up, right? You just do the opposite of what you're taught here, and it's easy to be non-successful. So it doesn't make sense. Financial planners all the time say you'll be in a lower tax bracket in the future. How in the hell is this possible? They're telling you to plan to fail? Because the second question is, do you think the government's going to raise or lower taxes in the future? Raise. So why in the world would you defer your taxes into the future? If you plan on having more money and they're going to raise taxes, you are being led to the slaughter. I'd be real careful with just deferring taxes. You want to save taxes. So instead, take those dollars and build your business. Invest in 3 Ps. People, when you have people that can do things so it's not always you. Number 2 is processes, which is exactly what you've invested in here. And automated procedures, which is exactly what you're doing. So when you invest in the 3 Ps, that builds equity in a business. When you build equity, equity comes from more cash flow. And the cool thing is you guys actually get to see the transformation people go through, so you get the fulfillment of seeing people live healthier lives and see physically the difference. When you put money into some retirement plan, you don't know if it benefits anyone in this world or how it impacts them. And most people prematurely diversify. I'm pretty sure when you have prematurely before anything, it's pretty bad, right? Like premature babies. I don't know what you guys are thinking. I was like, I mean, premature, I don't know. But premature diversification is a problem for businesses. Prematurely taking good money out of the business and locking it away in plans that you're not supposed to get to till you're 59 and a half. And investing in things where they automatically take fees, whether you want them to or not, and most of them aren't fully disclosed. And look, you know a lot more about what's going on in your business than these other 500 businesses that you've never stepped foot into their boardroom. So have some faith in yourself and invest in yourself. Before you start investing into speculative things, make sure that you've got your debt in order. Make sure that you've really got enough liquidity and savings so that you feel comfortable, and you've got a fund that provides enough abundance so you're not redlining and constantly running the risk of, is the next payroll going to be okay? Make sense? So, yeah.
Sorry.
Mike.
Thank you. Sorry. So at the end of the year, don't defer the taxes into like an IRA or something, is what you're saying.
I'm saying IRAs suck.
Okay.
I'm saying I hate IRAs.
Okay.
I wrote a Roth. Okay, so here's the thing. Roth is better, but here's my concern. Do you trust that the government's going to keep the tax status of a Roth the same in the future? Because if you read the fine print, it's a tax-deferred program under certain circumstances that you can get to tax-free. I don't really like that. There's tons of talk about increasing the tax on retirement plans right now. So here's the problem with an IRA. First of all, you can't get to the money without penalty today. Not all the fees are always disclosed or understood. Where do you invest it once you put it in there? Do you know and understand what's going on there? Do you have an understanding of your exit strategy, how you're going to benefit from the money in the future? I mean, we could just, in Killing Sacred Cows, when I wrote my book, I put together a thing called the 401k hoax. And I went and I did media, I did ABC News, I did Fox News, I did CNBC, and I exposed, and by the way, this is when the market was good. And they were saying, this guy's crazy. And then they kept bringing me on because as the market continued to tank, and it became more like a 401k is not okay, and a 401k has been more like a 201k for most people, they started to listen a little bit. And I think that it's been proven and self-evident, but I mean, if you go to page 251 of my book, Killing Sacred Cows, you'll see 15 points of what's wrong with these types of plans. So I think that there might be a place and a time for them, but not for tax savings. For tax savings, I think they're totally destructive because I hope you're in a higher tax bracket in the future.
So what did you say about investing in people, process, and procedure?
Yep. So invest in a business. As an entrepreneur, you have this unfair advantage that the rest of the world doesn't have, where you could actually build something. Like I look at a business like, how can I build it where it's not 100% reliant upon me, and where I can just start, as time goes on, create the structure where I get to do the things that I enjoy doing, and other people enjoy doing things that I don't enjoy doing. So that the retirement in my life is to retire from things that I don't enjoy doing and have a business structure that allows me to continue wealth for the rest of my life. Because I don't want to sell a business and just be done and go retire, because now I'm in the worst tax bracket possible because I don't have a business to write things off with. I'm a slave to whatever interest rates are doing, which I don't know how much control you feel over whether you should put it in stocks or bonds and what interest rates are going to do, but most people retired are totally worried about what's going on in the market. And I was on CNBC, and I hate watching the program, so I can't imagine having to be in retirement watching that stupid program every day. You know what I'm saying? They didn't invite me back on. And then the other thing is inflation. I don't know if you know, but they've been printing a little bit of money over the last few years. That starts to confiscate people's wealth year by year as a stealth tax that creeps up on them, where what they once could afford, they stop affording. So why would you get rid of that? Build a business that you can fall in love with. Work with people that you enjoy being around, and create a structure where you're not forced to be there every single day, because when you have the economic independence, you don't have exhaustion. And maybe you don't work at the same level that you do today in the future, but why don't you stay engaged with the purpose of what you're up to? Why don't you stay engaged with how you earn your money through that value creation? And what you're going to do is build more relationships. Because I'll tell you this, in the world of health, people that retire begin to prepare for death. And cellularly, their cells start to die off because they are told we have no purpose other than to sit and throw rocks on a beach and drink Corona. Their liver's going to fail, and their hip probably already gave out anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's like nothing great in the world happens because people shrink their way there. Nothing great in the world happens because people stop producing value. It's about having a real vision and living into that vision, that you understand the relationship between your vision and the impact it has on the people on the other end. Most people are so disconnected from their money that they don't have any idea why it would work or why it wouldn't work. And what happens is when the market goes down, their energy goes down. And I don't want to be going to your boot camp and having you pissed off that the market's down. I want to go and I want to feel energetic and working out, because I don't ever care what's going on in the market. I care about my personal market, which is what can I do today to create some value, to impact some people, and to serve someone. What the stock market does is really none of my business, because it's my stock that matters. And the worse that the market is, the more people need some leadership, the more they need someone to guide them in their health, because they better be able to deal with that stress, otherwise they die. Yeah. I don't have any strong feelings about it, though. So that sweat doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So look, we've talked a little bit about cash flow. We've talked a little bit about taxes and corporate structure. Here's another consideration I want you to take into account. If you're putting money into investments right now, I want you to really look and see what the interest rates are. We all the time ask people what they're getting on their investments, and the most common answer is 10%. We have software where we do the analysis, and we find that the average rate of return in the last 10 years has been 1.2% on the people that tell us it's at 10. Yet we can look and see that they have loans at 7%. That 7% is a guaranteed cost to you. You know it's 7%. If you have money that's not earning 7%, pay off the loan. Financial people don't tell you to do this because there's no commission involved in telling you that. But you also have more peace of mind if you pay that off, right? Now, don't starve your business in the name of paying off that debt either. Because in your business, you should be able to earn much more on a sustainable level at this size than the big companies can earn. Because eventually, companies can only grow so much because they own so much market share. When Apple's sitting on, $60 billion, there's only so much growth they can have at this point. Their major growth happened before. Now, they just have to sustain. They can't keep growing at the same digit returns because there's not people in third world countries that are going to have the computer, right? I mean, there's only so much out there. So just look at your business. And then the other thing is with investing is we talked about people, process, and procedure. But I also mentioned something. Let me put it in a framework for you. Equity, cash flow, and personal fulfillment when it's business. You have 3 dimensions. If you just put money into a stock, you get 1 dimension. You hope that it grows. But when you do it, when it's related to who you are and the value that you create, it's different. So I'm just going to go through a couple insurance pieces real quick that'll be really helpful. Look at your car insurance, increase your deductibles, see what it does to your premium. If you make multiple claims on your car insurance, they're going to drop you anyway, or they're going to increase your premium. So only use it for something that's substantial. Your homeowner's the same thing, increase the deductible. If you happen to have disability insurance, increase the time it takes for that thing to kick in, and it's going to substantially lower your premiums. if you're looking at health insurance, look at a health savings account rather than buying a policy that's going to go up in price every single year, and start funding that and take care of your health, which you guys are hopefully doing, right, in your profession. So you probably aren't going to need all the things that the average American that's loaded with high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, and what other nonsense that's killing them. Why would you join in paying their rates when you can take care of yourself with the health savings account? Yeah.
So, just to clarify.
So
sorry,
yes,
just to
high
clarify,
fructose
you're
corn
saying,
syrup is bad. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you
what
so
want to
much
verify,
for the
right?
clarification. I really needed that. So you're saying no on health insurance, just the health savings.
Health savings account, you can attach it's got a catastrophic policy attached to it.
Right.
So once you hit a threshold, you have full coverage.
Got it.
And see, in the old days, there was flex spending accounts, which meant you guessed how much you thought you might need. You could put it in pre-tax, and if you didn't use it, you lost it. So like in December, people are like, I'm going to run to the dentist. I'm going to, they're like, where can I go blow this money? Because otherwise it's just gone. And a health savings account, it just keeps growing. It just stays there. You can use it when you want to use it. I use it to pay for massages. I use it for all sorts of stuff, right? So it's much better because I'm really proactive with my health, like really proactive with my health. So I don't want to participate in the other system. Cool. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and we spend quite a bit of money on their health, but we don't go to regular medicine that has them pop pills. We're looking at proactive ways for them to be healthy, and we just cut the checks. Yeah, they've cracked their head twice in the last year that we had to get stitches, but I'm telling you, like, look, if we paid for our car insurance like we do our health insurance, where it's, I got a flat tire, I'll pay $20, and then the insurance company will pay $100, our rates would skyrocket. And that's why the rates have skyrocketed in health insurance, is people are starting to use that as a way to, and I don't want the insurance company dictating my health and saying, we'll cover this but not this, because then people live into that framework. But if I'm just saying, here's the money I would have spent on health insurance, I'm going to put in my health savings account. And then I use that. So yeah, when they crack their head open, and by the way, when you pay cash, it's a lot cheaper than what they bill the insurance. Like when I got a blood test recently, they're like, why do you want a blood test? I'm like, I want to see how the hell I'm doing. Can you imagine that? I'm actually proactively, without a doctor's recommendation, looking to see what's going on in my life. The price was 5 times cheaper for the cash price. 5 times cheaper. And it took them a while to look up because they're so used to billing and insurance, right? So there's a totally different world there. Yeah.
As far as building the health savings and the wealth account, would you recommend just using a separate account within our own financial institution, or going somewhere else for a higher interest rate on that? Because I think
the interest rate isn't going to make enough of a difference to start researching. You can go get like a ING online account, and they're paying a little bit more, but what's the difference between 0.5% and 0.6? It's so low right now. Unless you've got more than $10,000 in there, it's not even worth the time to go, because you're not going to leave it in that account for long after you've got your 6 months built up. You want access to it and the convenience more than you want the extra $10 that it might earn. Does that make sense? Good question. So, hey, I've got some cash recovery cards I'm going to pass out to everybody. Okay? So on these cards, if you want to fill this out, this is what we're going to offer to you. A phone call. So it's a live human being. This isn't an online thing. So here's the rules. If you fill it out and turn it in, we're not going to charge you because you're here with Bedros, okay? Right now, if you just went to our website, it's $500 for this analysis. But no charge for the people that are here. What we're going to do is ask you questions, because there's 7 key areas. I covered 2, and I covered about 10% of those 2 areas. In asking those questions, we're going to find out, are there areas where you're leaking money, okay? What's nice is you don't need to send in your driver's license and social security cards. You don't have to get economically nude in front of us. You just have to answer a couple questions, right? And by answering those questions, we can give you an analysis to say, hey, you're definitely losing X amount of money. Now, if you want our assistance after that to help you with it, we got Rebecca could tell you about it. She's been through it, been through the program. Emily could tell you about it. So we'll basically customize and say this is what it would look like, because we're not a fee-based firm and we're not a commission-based firm. If someone hires us, they write us a check and we guarantee performance on that. We keep coaching until we get it there, but we want to recover that cash. We want to put it in your pocket so you can build your business more. So you just the offer is good for as long as I'm here. Once I leave, you'll see there's no addresses on there. There's no place to fax it in. You fill it out, you hand it in. We ask for certain information on there, like your cell number. Why? Because some people they check, hey, I like text message to schedule. And if we get gatekeeped, we're not going to call back. Like if we call in and we get an assistant, and they're like, who are you and what are you calling about? So the reason we ask for email is because I'm going to send you links with specific videos on financial strategies and tips and give you more insight. So that's why we ask for those kind of things. Just if you fill it out, make sure you make your call. Don't reschedule because they'll probably not call you back. Now, if it's an emergency, we'll understand. Yeah.
Hi, I'm just wondering, we're from Canada, so is this going to apply to us, or is this kind of out of your area?
We work in Canada.
Okay,
yeah.
So we can go ahead and fill it out.
Yep, we have people in Canada that are part of our team.
Okay, and then another question I was going to ask you earlier was, we have, ours is an RRSP,
yep.
But the IRA...
It's almost like the same thing.
Same idea.
Yeah.
We have...
it's like a 401k, but worse.
Right. Yeah. We have quite a bit of money in it
yeah.
because we had no idea, and we just put a whole bunch of money into it. Can we take it out, or is there any way, do you have any recommendations on how to get it out?
So we have to talk, like I could speak to the U.S. side, but we have a guy that could speak to your side. I'll give a general, can't hold me to it in Canada, but I think it works the same, okay? So if you have a plan like that, yes, you can pull it out and you have to pay taxes and a penalty. Penalty is typically 10%. But there's a totally different strategy where you could roll it over into a self-directed account. In a self-directed account, you can actually go buy a commercial real estate property. You're not limited to just stocks. You can invest in any investment other than a few commodities or a business that you control. So it opens up the world of investing. And you can do what's called a 72T. Not that we have to get too technical, but a 72T allows you to start taking money out of it before 59.5 without the 10% penalty. So all that being said is there are plenty of ways to do it. It's just that you have to get the right experts and the right people in line to make that kind of stuff happen. So I had a 401k, I admit, back early on in my career, and I cashed it out and put a yard in. And that way, when everybody whined about their 401k not growing, mine has always grown ever since I cashed that thing in, you know what I'm saying? To the point where we're always having to trim it and everything. So, all right. Yeah, is there a question?
I have a healthcare savings account through FedEx. That's my day job, FedEx, and but that's like you got to use it by the year.
Not an HSA. Or an FSA you do, but not an HSA.
They call it HC or healthcare savings account, but you put an amount how much you want to withdraw from your check from your pay, but you have to use it up in that calendar year.
It's called a flex spending account that you need to check into. A flex spending, that's true. A health savings, that is not true.
Okay, now you could do it privately, get a health savings account, and it can grow every year.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
You could even roll your 401k or IRA
that was
into
my next
your
question.
Health savings account.
Okay, if I have a 401k with FedEx and I leave the company, and then
you could roll it over into a health savings account.
Okay, or somewhere that I can get access to it,
or
not pay a big
self-directed IRA
penalty.
and get access to it.
Okay.
What percentage? You don't pay taxes on a rollover. 0 tax, 0 penalty. Exactly. Yep.
So then, as far as like health insurance, like we have our own health insurance through our business. So are you saying like reduce the amount of health insurance that we have? Like so we have some health insurance, or
See,
totally
a health savings account
I've
still
thought
has
about it
health
before,
insurance.
but like you're terrified to totally replace it.
You're not going without when you have a health savings account. There's still insurance attached to it. It's
there
high
is, okay.
deductible.
Okay.
Low premium, high deductible.
Okay.
So,
You're not totally without health insurance.
No, you just have to cover the first $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 out of pocket. Then the health insurance kicks in.
Got it. Okay.
So,
thank you.
So you could do an analysis. What's your premium versus what happens over here? For the most part, I would say at least 3/4 of the time it makes sense to go to health savings account, but not 100% of the time.
So did you pay penalty on your 401k lawn?
I did, because I said screw it. I didn't want anything to do
taxes?
with, yeah, I just paid the taxes.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's what everyone else should do. I just said screw it. I looked at it as 10% being a very minor cost because it's 10% one time. It's almost like, can you imagine if you can get a loan and it was 10%, but it was only 10% the first year? That'd be a cheap loan. So I looked at it as it was worth the hit. So yeah, this analysis, just hand the card in. I'll be in the back. We can talk on the break. What we're built is we have an entire network of CPAs, of attorneys, of cash flow experts, of registered investment advisors, of credit experts. And then we are point people to take you through that entire process so every piece of your personal finances is 100% organized and handled so that there's no question or no holes. So it's like, should I do a health savings account? We would totally take it onto the analysis and help you understand, and then you make it based upon your situation. So, all right. Well, thanks for letting me spend a little time with you.